Here we go again. Are the Patriots on the verge of trading for a number one wide receiver? We'll break down the latest rumors here on Patscast.
The Patscast calls for a trade tonight. Vegas ain't treating Davante right. Stars don't shine where the lights are dim. New England.
Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Visit expressvpn.com/Patscast to get 3 months off of a 12-month VPN plan. Again, that is expressvpn.com/Patscast. And I feel like I am having deja vu all over again with these Davante Adams rumors after the Brandon Ayuk rumors of a few weeks ago, and I feel like the outcome might be similar. But the Patriots do have a bit more leverage than they did in the negotiations with the San Francisco 49ers a few weeks ago. And this Davante Adams to New England thing could be a real possibility. I'm going to break it down in a moment, but obviously Davante Adams and the Raiders is not a great situation right now. After Adams went down with a hamstring injury week 3, head coach Antonio Pierce liked a social media post suggesting that Adams might have played his last game with the Raiders. I guess he removed the like, but not a good look altogether. We know the body language that we've seen from Davante Adams on the sideline. He hasn't looked happy in Vegas for the last 2 to 3 seasons. We know he has a high salary cap cost, which is only going to grow over the next couple of seasons. And Davante Adams has made a formal trade request to the Las Vegas Raiders. And Adam Schefter reported on Tuesday that the Raiders have informed other teams that they would consider trading Davante Adams for a package that would include a second-round pick and some additional compensation. So let's break down the pros and cons here of Davante Adams potentially coming to the Patriots. We'll start with the cons. I want to start with the negatives first before I get to the positives. The first being that Davante Adams is 31 years old. Maybe he's a better receiver than Brandon Ayuk. I think that's arguable, but he's also 5 years older than Ayuk, with perhaps his best days behind him. Not to mention, has a hamstring injury. How bad is it? I don't know. It might just be an excuse for the Raiders to not play him because he's pouting so much on the sideline, or maybe it's a real hamstring injury. And if that's the case, that certainly should factor into de facto GM Elliott Wolf's decision to ultimately trade for the star wide receiver. And as is often the case with star wide receivers, Davante Adams has a reputation of being a bit of a diva. Didn't seem to get along with Josh McDaniels when he was the head coach of the Raiders, and I'm not ruling out the possibility of Josh McDaniels returning to the Patriots as their offensive coordinator next season, especially with the way things are going right now with Alex Van Pelt. But he seemed to love Antonio Pierce when he replaced Josh McDaniels. Now he has a sour relationship with Pierce, and I guess the two haven't even talked recently. And another factor is, does Davante Adams even want to play for the Patriots? A lower tier rebuilding team seems like an obvious destination with many former Packers teammates would be the New York Jets. Get to play with Aaron Rodgers again. That seems like an ideal situation, and you know the Jets are certainly in those trade conversations because that probably is the best fit for Davante Adams at this point in his career. Also, I know we talk about offensive production and the lack of receivers that the Patriots have, which I kind of disagree with, but there is an issue that we see with a lot of teams that have a true number one wide receiver that is far and beyond better than some of the other receivers on that roster that really can limit quarterbacks. We've seen this in Buffalo with Josh Allen, who's having a great season so far, although he struggled a bit week 4, but he's looked a lot better since Stephon Diggs left because he doesn't feel the pressure to constantly have to throw the ball to Diggs. We saw something similar happen in New England. As great as Randy Moss was, when he was traded away, the offense actually improved because Brady didn't feel like he had to eye Randy Moss every single play. The best receiver was the guy who was open, and the Patriots went on to win 3 Super Bowls after they traded away Randy Moss. And then, of course, the last con here is maybe if the Patriots could trade a second-round pick, like it's probably going to be a high second-round pick, maybe that second-round pick could be used better elsewhere. We know the biggest needs that this team has, and it's not necessarily the receiver position. It is the offensive line, especially the tackle position. Why not use the first 2 rounds of next year's draft? Assuming you have an early pick, take the best tackle in the first round and then take the best available tackle in the second round, and then you're off and running, and then you can sign a wide receiver free agent in the offseason or find some combination of the three, get an free agent tackle, draft a receiver in the second round, take a tackle in the first round. There's a lot of things that the Patriots can do with that draft capital. And remember, when they traded away Matt Judon, they also got an additional third-round pick. Maybe that's going to be on the table, and that's something that they would have to trade away if they were to bring in a receiver like Davante Adams. That being said, Adams would be a real difference maker in New England. And like I said, the Patriots expected to have a high second-round pick unless they start to turn things around pretty quickly, meaning the Raiders are perhaps more willing to be a trade partner with the Patriots. Not to mention, Davante Adams doesn't have much of a choice. Remember with the Brandon Ayuk negotiations, the Niners basically had 3 trade deals that they worked out with 3 different teams, and they said, Brandon Ayuk, you pick the team that you want to go to. Called his bluff, and eventually he signed an extension with the Niners. That's not the case here. And although Brandon Ayuk, it was in a different situation, Davante Adams does not have a no-trade clause, meaning wherever he goes next is not his choice. Now, is he going to be happy about going to New England? I'm not sure, but you do have the opportunity there to trade for him regardless of what his opinion is. And is that the best situation? I'm not sure, but the Patriots can do it if they really want to acquire Davante Adams. Another pro, which is also kind of a con, is Davante Adams is under contract for 2 more seasons after 2024. However, none of that is guaranteed. If he stays with the Raiders, he's likely going to be cut and be a free agent next year. But if he stays under that current contract, which he potentially would if the Patriots were to trade for him, he would make about $36 million a year over the next 2 years, making him the highest paid receiver in the NFL. So a trade partner would likely want to restructure that. However, the Patriots are one of the few teams in the NFL that could afford to pay a guy like Davante Adams top dollar like that. And look, if they were willing to pay Calvin Ridley $22+ million and Brandon Ayuk somewhere between $30 to $35 million, which is what I've heard, then perhaps they would be willing to consider Davante Adams in a $36 million annual contract. But, maybe that would mean Adams would want to play for the Patriots because he'd look at them and say, this might be the only team that is willing to continue with my current contract and make me the highest paid receiver in the NFL. And the Patriots have plenty of cap room to work with to make that work. And then they still have lots of leftover money to devote elsewhere. Not to mention Davante Adams seems to like Gerard Mayo, at least from a podcast that he was on with Robert Kraft a few months ago. He was really encouraged that the Patriots signed a black head coach. He thinks that's a big milestone for the team, and it sounds like he's a big fan of Gerard Mayo, so maybe he would be more willing to play for the Pats. And also, it would certainly uplift the rest of the receiving core, would make life a lot easier for Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, Kendrick Bourne when he comes back, probably would help with the development of Javon Baker, who we really haven't seen much at all this season. With all the defenses focused on Davante Adams, he would probably make a lot of openings for some of these other receivers. So, are the Patriots going to do this? I don't think it's going to happen. If I'm being honest, I don't think it's going to happen. And it's not that I don't think Elliott Wolf is willing to pick up the phone. I think he's already having those conversations right now. It's just, how often are we going to hear how close the Patriots are to getting XYZ player, and then they just don't get him? They say, oh, we were second. We were super close. It's like the Boston Red Sox. They're always involved in every lucrative contract negotiation, and they just miss out. And that kind of was the story for the Patriots this offseason. And yeah, I know they said things like, we got the best free agent tackle. He just happened to be on our team, and that's Michael Wenu. Or we got Hunter Henry, who is the best available free agent tight end. He just happened to be on our team. I'm sorry, that's not going to cut it. You have to bring in high-end free agents or make high-level trades outside of your organization. Re-signing guys on your team is the easy part because you have an opportunity to negotiate with them before everyone else. It just doesn't cut it. Patriots, We heard they were super close on Calvin Ridley. They were super close on Brandon Ayuk. And I don't have a lot of trust that they're going to actually be able to pull this off. And, like I said, I'm not sure this is the best situation for the team. Don't get me wrong. If they got Davante Adams, I would be excited. And I think if they can pull it off, they probably should. But I think they actually have a pretty good receiving core. And I will lay out exactly why. Remember on my podcast, if you're a frequent listener here, a few days after week 1, after the Patriots had their upset victory over the Cincinnati Bengals, which doesn't really look like that big of an upset at this point, I went on and I said, Jalen Polk was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL week 1, according to Separation. And I got lit up in the comments from people saying, he had one catch, it's 1 week, it's one game, what are you talking about? They don't have their true number 1 wide receiver. Well, okay, here we are 3 weeks later, and we found out today that Jalen Polk now ranks 3rd in the NFL out of 101 qualifying wide receivers in Separation win rate. So when it comes to Separation, I know the stats don't show it, but when it comes to Separation, Jalen Polk, the rookie, is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL right now, and that has continued from week 1 through week 4. And if you look at the film from week 4 against San Francisco, there were receivers open all over the place. It's a repeat of the last 3 weeks, but even more egregious, not just Jalen Polk. Pop Douglas was open on a number of plays, particularly on that one play, which resulted in a pick 6 to Fred Warner. Demario Douglas had one man to beat on the right side, and he was wide open, would have been at least a 30-yard gain, and if he had beaten that one man, it was an obvious touchdown. Instead, Jacoby Brissett threw a pick 6 to Fred Warner. And, as much as I've criticized offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt on this podcast over the last couple of weeks, and he needs to be better. He talks about getting the football out quickly, drawing things up schematically so Jacoby Brissett can get rid of the football quickly, and then you watch the scheme and it looks exactly the same. I still think most of the blame for what happened week 4 and what happened week 3 has to fall on Jacoby Brissett because receivers are getting open. And yeah, I know he doesn't have a ton of time to throw the football, but he certainly had time on that pick 6 to Fred Warner. He certainly had Pop Douglas wide open. There was another receiver, I don't know who it was at the top of my head, who was also open. Jacoby Brissett holds on to the ball too long. He's too indecisive, and he makes the wrong throws. And when you have a guy like Jalen Polk, who is separating at the rate that he is, 3rd in the NFL, when you have a guy like Pop Douglas, who is Tyreek Hill light and really has the ability to be the next true slot receiver for the Patriots, you got to get those guys the football. And Jacoby Brissett just has not been able to do so. And how many more games do the Patriots have to lose this season before they put in Drake May? That's the question, because like I've said many times, Drake May is going to make mistakes. He's going to make more mistakes than Jacoby Brissett, at least when it comes to turnovers. But he's also going to get rid of the football a lot quicker compared to what we see with Brissett. And we saw that in the preseason, that Drake May actually processes things pretty quickly, goes through his progression quickly. We know what he can do with his legs. We know his arm strength. Patriots are going to be better with Drake May out there. I think that's the case. And when you look at the film and you look at some of the guys that are getting open, that falls on Alex Van Pelt a little bit, but ultimately it falls on Jacoby Brissett. And hopefully the Patriots can either turn it around really quickly or they'll make a decision real soon and put Drake May finally in there. But look, you don't have to trade for Davante Adams. It would be amazing. They would suddenly have, I think, a very good receiving core, because I think the Patriots have a very underrated receiving core. Talked about the separation. I talked about Pop Douglas. They have great tight ends, Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry. Most teams do not have a tight end core that good. What about when Kendrick Bourne comes back? KJ Osborne, been a bit of a disappointment, but he is a veteran receiver. He's a good number 3, number 4 option to have out there. Javon Baker is developing. Tyquan Thornton has been terrible, but Kayshon Boutte, in the limited time that he's actually played, has looked pretty good. I don't think this is a bad receiving core. Do I think it's great? No. Do I think adding Davante Adams could potentially make them great? Perhaps. But you can stick with what you have right now and then devote all your resources to the offensive line next year. And I think this might actually be a good football team, assuming the coaching improves, assuming it works out with Drake May. You don't have to do this. And Patriots have the flexibility, they have the cap space to do this, and I'm kind of rooting for them to do this, especially with Elliott Wolf striking out on some of these potential trades that we've seen over the last few months. But that's not what's important right now. I don't think the receiver position is what the Patriots should prioritize. I don't think the tight end should be what they're prioritizing. It should be not even center or guard. It should just be the tackle spot at this point, because Caden Wallace, maybe he can be the future right tackle, but I'm not sure. Hasn't seemed to work out so far at left tackle. Mike Onwenu, much better at right guard than at right tackle. And then didn't work out with Chuks Okorafor. Vidarian Lowe, you can't rely on. And then they're putting DeMontre Jacobs, a guy they signed off of a practice squad a few weeks ago, now starting at left tackle. So, yeah, I think they should go after Adams because they still have flexibility to address the tackle spot next year, but it's not the most important thing. So I'm curious to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think the Patriots, one, have a shot at getting Davante Adams? I think they have more leverage than any team in the NFL, but let me know if you disagree. Do you think they should trade for Davante Adams? And what do you think they should be prioritizing at this moment in time? Is it the offensive line? Is it improving the receiving core? When we get to the NFL draft next year, and you have an opportunity potentially to draft a guy like Travis Hunter, should they do it or should they take the best available tackle? I'm in the tackle camp, but let me know if you disagree. Curious to hear from you in the comments. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, or subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And we'll see you later this week.
The patch cast calls for a trade tonight. Vegas ain't treating Devante right. Stars don't shine where the lights are dim. New England bound bring the wind. Football warriors on a quest. Mayo soldiers never rest. Davante's speed we can't ignore. Catch the star, he'll help us score. Pats cast rolls across the land. Trade for Davante, it's in demand. Vegas can't see what they've been blessed. Pats cast calls, time to invest. Adams running out of Sin City fade. Grasp the dream before it's too late. Foxborough Fields in autumn haze. Davante's path, a new phase. Break the chains, cut him loose. Renaissance of skill is use. Pats cast echoes in the night. Trade for glory, trade for flight. Pats cast roars across the land. Trade for Davante, it's in demand. Vegas can't see what they've been blessed.